muted. Good morning, Jubilee community. It's another beautiful day to be alive in the Blue Ridge Mountains or wherever it is you are joining us from. Jubilee is this community of faith, and we come together to celebrate life and community and creativity and the holy, whatever that means to you. And community is a lot of what we're about. And what helps build community in this virtual age of Zoom calls is to be able to see each other. So if you can turn on your video, even if you're just woke up and eating your breakfast or flossing your teeth, like go down to the bottom left, turn on your video, and then we can all wave to each other and say hi. So wave to the person next to you. This is also how we clap on this virtual medium. And we just invite you to participate in this. Is a participatory sport. So participate by chatting with each other in the chat rooms, by sending prayers throughout the celebration, and to make sure you stay and join the breakout rooms after. So today we are celebrating as part of the Via Positiva, saying yes to adaptation. And think of all of the things you have adapted to in your life. And we're constantly adapting. We're adapting to the time of the day, to the time of the year, for many of us, the time of the month, to the stage in our life. We adapt to life circumstances, politics, weather, homeschooling, social distancing, and so much more. And if you really want to see good examples of adaptation, we just, as always, we turn to nature. Like I know the viney grapes in my front yard, they'll adapt to go up a trellis or up anything else that's nearby. Hawks adapt to living in forests all the way to high rises and skyscrapers. Dandelions are such a great example of it. They'll adapt to living in a field in Europe or a sidewalk in Detroit. And one of the best examples is water. It's the epitome of adaptation. It can fit into a teacup or the Nile or a cloud. Water is one of the favorites of the Tao Te Ching, which tells us that nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as water, yet for dissolving the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass it. So here we are against some hard things in our world, fires out west, hurricanes in the Atlantic, Black men being shot, a pandemic. And in a weird way, whether it's over the last 400 years or 40 or 4 months, we've adapted to some of these things. There's almost like a normalcy in some of the climate chaos. But it feels like the world is knocking on our doors more loudly right now and asking us to adapt in different ways. In my 20s, I read this book that my husband had called Who Moved My Cheese? And it was, I don't know if you've heard of it, it was two mice and they were eating cheese and the blocks of cheese got moved and one mouse kept going back to the same place and the other like found a new block of cheese. And it feels like that's what our world is asking us right now, that if we do not adapt, any species that doesn't adapt is doomed. And so maybe we're not being asked to adapt to what is, like the frog that boils slowly in the water, but to adapt to find a whole new way of being, a whole new block of cheese. So with that lovely introduction, we are saying yes to exploring what it means to adapt. And with that, let's awaken our soul.
Yeah. Awake my soul. Awake my soul. Who moved my cheese? Awake my soul. You were made to meet your maker. You were made to meet your maker. You were made to meet your maker. Oh yeah. Thanks for that, Jackie. All these reminders, beautiful context. Part of the context that we inhabit is some land here in Asheville in Western North Carolina that has been inhabited for much more time than most of us can even imagine. And the people that lived here are still here. And one of those people is here with us today, Yona Frenchhawk. So thank you, Yona, for being here. And I assume I know you're having some problems. I hope you're on. Yona came on to our pre-meeting today, and he and a friend had some there we go. You're in. Had some car problems this morning. So can you hear us, and can we hear you, Yona?
Can we hear you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So thank you for that intro, Dan. And, you know, the Cherokee people, not just the Cherokee people, but all the tribes of this land talk about some of the adaptations that they had to do even before the settlers came, adapting to a natural way of life, adapting. I mean, check this out. Look how beautiful this is. And adapting to nature as a people, as one people. And to have a virus come in of colonization, and we had to learn how to adapt to a new way of life. We had to adapt to being made U.S. citizens in 1924, but not given the right to vote until 1962 as Native American people. So with that, we share today's message of adaptation, of had car problems, had to pull over the car, but look where I get to do my thing from this morning. So this is adaptation and showing up and not getting too queasy or too anxious about what happens in life, but to find a good balance, adapt, adjust, and flow. So with that, it's face. I don't even know where the east is, but let's just reach out to nature. And thank you, ancestors, for all that you give us. Thank you for your light and your love. Thank you for the patience as we breathe the air to adapt to the next thing that comes to us in the great mystery of life. Thank you for today's lesson in my life. Thank you for teaching us how to flow with the energy and light of life that we seek. Thank you, ancestors of the East, for all that you have given, and continue to come and know that we honor and love you. Aho. Oh, ancestors of the South, thank you for your water medicine and the rain people and the thunder beings. Thank you for all that you have brought to add to this beauty and this growth and greenness. Thank you for reminding us of the first words of spiritual children of this earth, the nature and language of nature. Thank you. Thank you for continuing to quench our thirst for the mystery of life. We honor you and we love you. And come, be with us in a good way. I hope. Ancestors to the West, to all those that have gone before, thank you. Thank you for adapting to a way of life that has taught us a bright path to the future. Thank you for your integrity and your honor. Thank you for your love of the earth, for your laughter and your tears. Remind us of your stories and the journey that brought you to this greatness. Help us to adapt to whatever's in front of us so that we may sit beside you and stand beside you and walk toward the future. We ask, we beg of you. We'll be there soon. Oh, ancestors of the North, to all the Wind Nation, thank you. Thank you for all the breath that you give to each and every living thing on this earth. Thank you for carrying the prayers and the vibrations of our hearts and our prayers and visions, our hopes and dreams for our generations to come, our children and our grandchildren and their children and grandchildren. Continue to carry our voice and our song and our hope in the wind. Talk to the leaves and the trees and the grass and the water so that we may all speak one language in the heartbeat of life. Oh. And if you'll take a deep breath, please, and just center within yourself. Oh, ancestors of the universe, we come to you humbly in a time where we're learning to adapt to a different way of life of what we've known. We ask you to comfort us in these times. And if we are comforters, help us to go out and comfort others. Teach us how to adapt to this energy, to bring out the antivenom or the antidote or whatever it is. Help us energetically to affect the healing of all the illness, not just this COVID-19, but all the illness, whether it's the people locked in their minds or in their hearts and their spirits. Help us to be free in that way and adapt to the wind and flow into life in a good way.
Thank you, Yona. So this takes us back, but maybe it'll take us forward. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. Okay, now I'm looking and I'm seeing a few folks out there that are singing. And I know it's like, yeah, Daniel sings, and then we all kind of play like we're singing, or we all sort of lip sync so that Daniel will think you're singing. But no, you can do better. We can do better. Come on, y'all. We got some adaptation and some turning to do. Let's do this thing. Let's start all over again. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a sea, yeah, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to get. I totally blew that. We got to start that one over too. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time of love, a time of hate, a time of war, a time of peace. A time that you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. Don't we know that? To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rend, a time to sow, a time for love, a time to hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. Yeah. Like that. Okay. So I've known this next gift giver who's been on the board at Jubilee for a while now, a couple of years. Is that right, Jenny?
Actually 1 year, probably a little more.
1 year? Okay, well, it seems like a couple of years.
Yeah.
Not because of you, but I really don't know Jenny all that well, and so we were asking, like, well, what can I say about this? And Jenny said, just say I'm going to do a statement from the board. And Jackie's like, no, you got to tell everybody that this is a badass. So and then just listed off a litany of things that Jenny does in her life. And so I introduce to you a badass from the board, Jenny Farley.
Thank you, Daniel. That was very nice. I appreciate that. I am going to read a letter to Jackie. We want to acknowledge Jackie today for all she has done for us. And this is a letter from the board. Okay. Thank you, Jackie Dobrinska, for who you are and what you do. For the past 6 months, Jackie Dobrinska has been the mainstay in keeping the good ship Jubilee afloat and sailing forward during the challenges that 2020 has presented our spiritual community. An ordained creation spirituality minister, Jackie has devoted her ministry towards Jubilee, towards community building. And she provided this principal support for our many teams and all of the extraordinary events hosted by Jubilee. As we are all aware, after the unexpected closure of our Wall Street House of Faith due to the pandemic, Jackie moved into a new role, stepping forward with courage, open-heartedness, wisdom, and ingenuity to create Sunday online services that have been rich and compelling. Jackie coordinated the theme and the design of each online celebration, and she assembled a cadre of inspiring speakers. What's more, she constructed the technological infrastructure to support it all. While it's a right and good and joyful thing to welcome Laura Collins into the role of Minister of Transition, and with some grief towards what has been and some joy towards what will be, Jackie will again put her focus on building and strengthening our community. It is essential that we mark this change, recognizing the stabilizing and healing force Jackie has been, holding the vision that she will continue to empower our community's evolution. At this time, we acknowledge Jackie for her many strengths, her resourcefulness, her patience, her generosity, her willingness, her deep spirituality, and more. We thank you, Jackie, for showing up so fully, for your honesty, your voice, your bravery, and your unwavering commitment. May the deep calling of your soul and the transitions press upon us in this time, bringing new vision, love, and compassion into this world to an exponential degree. And may it bless you, Jackie, through and through. We want to end this blessing with our community led by Jay Joslin. So I'm passing the torch on to Jay. Thank you, Jackie, for everything. You're awesome. We love you so much.
Thank you. I'm so grateful, and I feel so embarrassed right now.
We love you so much. You have done so much.
Thank you. And I just want to say that I didn't do it alone. Daniel and Jay and all of these amazing folks. And I super appreciate this community and that acknowledgement. So thank you so much.
You're so gracious, Jackie, but this is for you and about you. So just soak it in.
Let it in, baby. Let it in. Yeah, that.
So, you have been a curative elixir to Jubilee's spiritual and organizational ADHD. This has been a special year, and Jackie, your cat herding has been absolutely magnificent, and you deserve a blessing from all of us. Now, we've always said, and I deeply contend, that Jubilee is not a building, that Jubilee is a verb. And Jackie, you've been jubileeing for all of us, for all of us, for all of us. This is a moment to soak that appreciation and love in. Now, Jubilants, we've done this before, and we're going to do it again. Let's thank this good woman, this wild woman, this wise woman with a blessing. I invite you to summon your inner Baptist and put your hands on the screen and repeat after me.
Oh my God.
Can we unmute?
If you want to unmute and do the cacophony, let's go ahead and do it. Ready? God bless you, Jackie Dobrinska.
God bless you, Jackie
Dobrinska.
You keep our community thriving.
You keep our community thriving.
May you yourself thrive.
May you yourself thrive.
May you get some rest.
May you get some rest.
You deserve it.
You deserve it.
Sure. Deserve it.
Oh, I can't do it.
May you be deeply inspired.
You be deeply inspired.
To be vibrantly yourself.
Be vibrantly yourself.
Wildly free. Profoundly at ease.
She wrote on Facebook.
We bless you.
He bless you.
He bless you.
With our love and care.
Our love and care. Oh, wow.
God bless you, Jackie Dobrinska.
God bless you.
Dobrinska.
Hey, Dobrinska!
Yeah.
Big round of applause. Yes.
God, y'all, that was the most wild thing ever. Thank you so much. I love the cacophony of chaos. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, you're muted, Jay. I muted everybody. There you go.
I invite you all to breathe deeply.
Thank you so much.
And grab your bowls, bells, noisy things. My neighbor has grabbed his noisy thing with his lawnmower. Changes. Turn and face the strange changes. This may have well been the anthem of 2020 or last week. Fighting change, that's what all the hubbub's been about. Fighting change makes headlines, but adaptation is far less dramatic because no matter how you measure time, the long arc of our inner and outer nature always bends toward adaptation. It doesn't mean that we stop fighting climate change, but we attentively learn from the earth and what she's teaching us and act decisively. Nor do we cease raising up the sacred causes for which our civil rights pioneers have long marched. These causes merely plead for adaptation. Jubilee, you've done a mighty fine job of evolving and adapting over the past year. No doubt, there is much more to come. Turn and face the strange. Bless up, Jubilee community. In the chat, you may pray with Laura, Jackie, and Daniel, and your friends. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Melt me, mold me, fill me, use me. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Breathe deeply. Daniel, how about you take us into singing and sharing a holy piece?
With pleasure, Jay. Thank you. So encourage all of you to put a little something in the chat, just a little greeting, a little blessing to everyone or to someone in particular as we sing. It's in every one of us to be wise. Find your heart, open up both your eyes. We can all know everything without ever knowing why. It's in every one of us by and by. All right, now chat each other up. It's in every one of us. I just remembered, it's like I've been sleeping for years. I'm not awake as I can be, but my seeing's better. I can see through the tears. I've been realizing that I bought this ticket and watching only half of the show. There is scenery and lights and a cast of thousands who all know what I know, and it's good that it's so. It's in every one of us to be wise. Find your heart, open up both your eyes. We can all know everything without ever knowing why. It's in every one of us by and by. It's in every one of us by and by. Oh, yeah. So now we are going to be blessed by a gift of voting from someone who has devoted, I didn't even plan that, his life to social justice. And really grateful to have you here to share your perspective with us today about how we can adapt and how we can bring our hearts and minds and hands and feet to make the world a better place. So Ron Katz.
Thanks, Daniel. I suspect all of us are feeling stressed during these challenging times. The pandemic, coupled by the loss of jobs and contact with those we care about, the racial injustice and much more, leaves some of us wondering how we can cope. Add into that the upcoming election, and it is easy to panic and want to hide. Don't. Voting is indeed a gift that all of us should cherish and take advantage of. With 65 days before Election Day, 46 days before early voting starts, and only 5 days before absentee ballots will start being mailed out to those who have completed and submitted their absentee ballot request forms, we have both the time and the ability to make positive change. If you haven't already, there are 3 critical actions to take. First, put together your plan to vote if you haven't. You have 3 choices: by mail, in-person early voting, and in-person election day. I encourage everyone to complete and submit their absentee ballot request form, if only to have it as a backup. And as of this Tuesday, you should be able to complete and submit it totally online through the North Carolina Board of Elections website. Second, understand the rules so you can navigate voting this year. We've never had an election like this, and our state, like many others, is instituting a lot of changes. I'll share at the end how you can get your questions answered. Third, Get someone knowledgeable that you trust to help you vote for the candidates that share your values. There are valuable websites like vote411.org from the League of Women Voters that provide good information on the candidates and their positions on issues. But there is no replacement to connect to someone that is knowledgeable and trustworthy that can help you decide on the candidates that share your values. This is one of the longest ballots we have ever seen in our lifetimes, two-sided on legal paper, and there will be candidates and races you know little about. You will be doing an invaluable service to keep our democracy alive if you do each of these. And if you want to add a fourth opportunity where you can make a difference, share this strategy with others. With all that you do, however, there will also be questions that arise. And in a year where change is happening all the time, you need to have a way to pose those questions and get the answers you need. So a first choice is to call your local Board of Elections. The general number for the Buncombe County Board of Elections is 828-250-4200. If you want, feel free to email me with any questions you have. If I don't have the answer, I will do the research to find it. And I believe Jackie will follow up with my contact information for those who don't have it. Finally, one very key element is to act early. The sooner an absentee ballot request form is completed and submitted, the sooner you get your absentee ballot. Then, rather than waiting until the last minute, complete your ballot and get it to the Board of Elections, either by mail, going to the board office, or dropping it off at early voting. And if you feel comfortable, do your voting in person at early voting. There are 16 sites and 17 days in Buncombe County, and the Board of Elections is doing all it can to make them safe and secure. Yes, this election is stressful, but use your gift to vote and encourage others to do the same. Thanks.
Thank you, Ron. Sometimes I think we think separation of church and state means we can't talk about our activity as citizens, but that's not what it means. We can't promote particular candidates, but we can promote our values. And one of the values that I appreciate Ron sharing with us is that value to vote. And hearing Yona talk about how long it's been, but not very long, that folks have had the possibility of voting who are Native American, just brings it home again, what an important part of being in this country this is. So thank you again, Ron, for not just this work you do, but all the work that you do for social justice. I'm going to light a candle before I begin the readings today. I invite you to take a deep breath as we hear these ancient words. If something of good befalls him, he is grateful, and that is good for him. If something of harm befalls him, he is patient, and that is good for him. That is from Hadith number 2999 from our fellow monotheist Islam, our Muslim brothers and sisters. And then from the New Testament, one of the letters of Paul to the church at Philippi. This is from the 4th chapter of Philippians. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to everyone. God is near. Do not worry about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your request be made known to God. And the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, beloved, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is gracious, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. For I have learned in whatever situation I am in to be content. I know what it is to have little, and I know what it is to have plenty. In any and all circumstances, I have learned the secret of being well fed and of going hungry, of having plenty and of being in need. For I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. This is ancient wisdom and holy word. Thanks be to all that is wise and holy. All creation is wisdom and holy word. All creation sings of wisdom and God. Hallelujah. So, more than a decade ago, when I was still fairly new to Jubilee, I ran into another minister there one day who I knew to be a chaplain and a social justice advocate. So after the celebration, I went over to welcome her, and she looked slightly shell-shocked from the experience of Jubilee. And she asked me if I came there regularly, and I acknowledged that I was kind of new and kind of irregular, but that I liked it. She looked around at everyone, and it was in that very noisy post-celebration celebration that is always Jubilee, with dancing and laughing and hugging, and with a tone that indicated judgment. She said, "This seems like a place for shiny, happy people." I should have responded, "You say that like it's a bad thing." But I knew what she meant. Many of us who come out of the white progressive Christian tradition have a history of taking ourselves very seriously. We are the ones who have truly understood the call to justice in the scriptures, and especially in Jesus. We love to quote the prophets, "Woe to you who lie on your beds of ivory and drink your wine while your city is in ruins. Woe to you who refuse justice to the widow and the orphans." We love to point out that the first scripture Jesus ever read in public was from Isaiah. "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, and God has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. God has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to send out in freedom those who are oppressed, to proclaim the favorable year of the Lord." Now, without any doubt, I will take that version of Christianity over most of what claims to be about Jesus these days. The problem I have found in many of these circles and in myself, and that I heard in that chaplain's tone that morning, is the idea that if you take injustice seriously, then some happy, fun-loving Sunday morning celebration is out of the question. Who has time for that kind of joy? Today's theme, saying yes to adaptation, lifts up this phrase from Philippians: "I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content." I pondered that phrase this week as we watched another Black man be shot by the police, this time with 7 bullets in the back at close range in front of his children. I pondered that phrase when that very same police force let a young white man walk openly through a protest with a semi-automatic rifle, and he ended up killing protesters. I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I pondered that phrase as my namesake hurricane battered the shores of the Gulf Coast. I pondered that phrase as fires continued to rage across the western part of our nation. I pondered that phrase as we neared 200,000 coronavirus deaths just in this country and almost 1 million worldwide. And I'll confess, it is easier for me to go straight to the holy rage of the prophets than to contentment. For me, a healthy white woman with numerous privileges, living in a place that's not being devastated by fires or hurricanes, to talk about contentment in all circumstances feels arrogant or ignorant, or at the very least, lacking in empathy. But then I thought about that woman coming to Jubilee. This seems like a place for shiny, happy people. And I thought, you know what? It is. I was on a call this week for clergy associated with the National Poor People's Campaign, which you may know is what North Carolina's own Reverend Dr. William Barber is heading up after he started the Moral Monday movements here. And as I listened to Dr. Barber, his voice rising and falling with the cadence of the prophets in those few minutes on Zoom, I was reminded that unlike my own white progressive church of the first 30 some years, the Black progressive church has always known how to hold grief and joy simultaneously. In fact, it's a sign of my own privilege that I have trouble letting the two coexist. I have the freedom to only grieve sometimes, to let myself forget about injustice for as long as I need to before I get back to paying attention. And it was from the Black church that I began to learn as a young adult that when you never get a day off from injustice, you don't find your joy by walking away from it all or by putting your head in the sand. Rather, it is in the midst of your grief that you find your joy. So then I went back to that line from Philippians. I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. And I read the rest of that chapter to put it into context. So the letter to Philippians, it comes from our guy, Paul, who bounced all over the Mediterranean as a kind of church consultant in those early years following Jesus. And Paul was known to be pretty opinionated. Understatement. But what I love about Paul is that he'll be going along in these letters he wrote to these young communities, being very specific. And in this chapter, for example, he was telling two women who he calls by name and who he names as co-workers to improve their relationship for the sake of the larger community. All right, let me digress just for a minute. So just as an aside, Paul worked with lots of women, and he names a lot of those in our traditional Bible. And those phrases about women submitting and being quiet were not actually written by Paul. And in fact, there's this whole other gospel that didn't make it into the Bible called the Acts of Paul and Thecla that is about his ministry with his primary companion in ministry, Thecla, who was a woman. Okay, but all of that's really for another Sunday. So back to the topic at hand. So back to today, Paul goes from these specific details talking to these women, and he does this in all of his letters. He'll be talking about something very specific, and then he'll sort of reach the end of his own wisdom and break into a kind of poetic exuberance. And that's what he does in this letter. He says, rejoice in the Lord always, rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to everyone. God is near. Do not worry about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So first he's telling people to stop fussing at each other. And then he's singing, rejoice, rejoice. And then the very next phrase is one of my all-time favorites. Finally, beloved, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is gracious, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Paul is definitely not saying that the true, lovely, just, excellent things are all there are. I mean, this was a man who had been imprisoned and tortured and will eventually be executed for his beliefs. But he is saying just and true and excellent and lovely things do exist. So set your mind on these. And all of that is the context for him getting to this phrase, I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. Saying yes to adaptation does not mean adapting ourselves to what is wrong in the world. It means adapting our attitude, adapting our thinking, adapting our focus so that we are not so bogged down in our own grief and the grief of the world that we lose track of the joy. Why do we care so deeply about the world in the first place? We care about injustice because we long for all people in all places to know joy, to know love, to know peace, to experience loveliness. And if we lose track of the joy and the love that sets in motion our fight for justice, then we can be pulled into a whirlpool of despair that separates us from the purpose that first fired us up. Some of you may be familiar with a movement known as deep adaptation. Deep adaptation is a response to the unfolding climate tragedy that we are living through. The movement is comprised of people who believe that a climate-influenced collapse of societies in the coming decades is either likely or inevitable or already happening. And they're organizing activities to help reduce harm, save what can be saved, and create possibilities for the future while experiencing meaning and joy in the process. So reduce harm, save what can be saved, and create possibilities for the future while experiencing meaning and joy in the process. So when I think of saying yes to adaptation, this is what I imagine. Creating possibilities, imagining the beautiful world we long for, looking for what is honorable and just and true and gracious, finding meaning and joy even as we bear witness to the loss all around us. We adapt to the realities around us, not by accepting them or giving into them, but by acknowledging another reality, a reality that gives meaning to the one we find ourselves in, a reality that knows joy regardless of the circumstances, a reality that stays focused on what is true and lovely and excellent, and in fact is the source of true, lovely excellence. For me, that reality comes from a deep spiritual surrender. Now, the 12 steps begin with an acknowledgement of powerlessness. I have never liked that, but I understand it. We accept the one reality, powerlessness, our powerlessness, so that we can step into another reality, which is a higher power. And for the steps to work, or really any spiritual program for that matter, the key is surrendering to this higher power, to God as we understand God, to trusting, as Paul says, that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. But surrender does not mean giving up. Surrender means giving over. I hand over my despair about the world so that it can be transformed. I hand over my limited understanding so that I can find that peace that passes understanding. I hand over my rage that it might be sharpened into a knife that cuts through lies. I hand over my sadness that it might be sparked into a fire of compassion. Saying yes to adaptation is like modulating our key from a minor chord to a major one so that we can move through our grief and find that joy that, as an old spiritual says, the world didn't give and the world can't take it away. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away. So I invite you this week to carry that song with you, which Daniel will help us with in a moment, and to meditate on this. Finally, beloved, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is gracious, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Amen.
This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, the world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. Okay, now we know it. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, the world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. One more time. This joy that I have, sing it out. The world didn't give it to me. Oh, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, the world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. The world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. The world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. Oh, yeah. Woo! Oh, yeah. Jay, did you just bug out on us? Like give you all that appreciation and then you just bugged out and we can't hear you anymore and you're just gonna...
Me?
No.
I think Jackie's trying to do the thing, and we've lost Jackie.
Jackie, we like thanked her and told her how great she was, and she just like skipped town. Are you? I can see you. I can see your mouth moving, Jay, but I can't hear you.
Are we gonna have to lip sync Jackie?
We're gonna have to lip. Yeah. Can you just tell us what she's saying, Jay?
This could get dangerous really quickly.
Yeah, it could. It could. We can have her saying whatever we want her to say.
You can't hear me.
Ah, there you are.
Can you hear me now?
There you are.
Oh, that was weird. I don't know what just happened. Wow, thank you. See, that's what I was just talking about, the many gifts and the many people that come together to make this happen and to make this community work. And you all, every single one of you here, all the brilliant people here on this call are part of what makes Jubilee work. It's by showing up and coming to celebrations on Sunday. It's by bringing the gifts. So many of you bring songs and poetry and dance on Sunday. And it's also donating your money. So many of you have continued to fulfill your pledge during this time. So many of you continue to donate. Some have increased their pledge. And some have dug deep to be able to continue to support this community in a time when it's kind of challenging for a lot of us. So we just want to say thank you for all of you that are continue to give to Jubilee to help us continue now and into the future. And so if you would like to give, there's lots of different ways to do it. You know, if we were in the building, we'd be passing the bowls right now, but this is how we virtually pass the bowls. You can go online and donate. You can do that. So it's just automatic. You can text and you can download the app, and all of those are in the chat. If you want to text, the number is 844-962-2639. So thank you for continuing to support this amazing community in so many ways. I also wanted to give an update on the Racial Equity Institute training. Jay did a great job of shaming you all last week, which was my request, because we're not really well known for being for knowing what microaggressions are and for being welcoming and inviting. We try to be, we do our best, but we often do it in a way that is counterproductive. And so how we change that is we have to learn. We have to learn what microaggressions are. We have to know the history of race. We have to realize how we contribute in these often covert ways that are even invisible to ourselves. And so the Racial Equity Institute training is an amazing and profound training. And we are lucky enough that we can offer it in partnership with Evergreen. We do still have a few spaces left. And this training normally sells out in 2 or 3 days. So please, if you're at all interested in trying to help make not only our community, but the world a more equitable place, sign up. It's really affordable. We do also have a few equity seats available. If you want to contribute to equity seats, that's also welcome as well. So there should be a link to sign up. It's also in the newsletter. And just to reiterate what Ron said earlier, please get ready to vote. There's a presentation he did, and there's going to be a link in the chat if you want to learn more about that. Also really excited because Jubilee's jumping in to help kids learn. Being a parent right now is challenging, and there's a lot. It's even more challenging for low-income folks. And so we're joining the Interfaith Initiative so that we can provide a space that has internet access to low-income kids. And so we'll be open 4 hours a week, 5 days a week for kids to come in and learn. And there are volunteer opportunities available. They'll be providing most of the volunteers, but we will need at least one jubilant there every single day, and potentially some people to help sanitize in between. And it'll be between 12 to 16 kids probably. So if you can do that, there's a link where you can sign up. And it actually doesn't come to us. It'll go to Interfaith Initiative. So if you are volunteering, send an email to me as well, which is jldobrinska@gmail.com. Also want to let you know the communications team is rocking. They're creating a new website. We've got this Google grant that's phenomenal, so we can reach more people. And as part of that, we're looking for some people who can help with Google Ads, photography, and video editing. So if you're one of those folks, contact Michelle Bernhardt, and her email's in the side. There's a couple more things. Now that I'm back in this role, watch out. Jubilee to Action is going to be lots of fun. So Laura Collins and Marie Linneman are two of our amazing Earth Team leaders, and they're starting a 7-week circle to examine our emotions around grief and all of the ways that that's happening today around racial inequality, climate justice, and COVID. And that's starting September 17th. It's through the Climate Care Alliance, and you can read more. There's a link over to the side. And lastly, we are jumping in back, room at the end, the way that we used to support homeless women every quarter, that sort of went away because of COVID. So now I think there's 61 people being housed at the Red Roof Inn, and Homeward Bound's looking for people to help feed them. And Delia is this amazing caterer, and Carol, who's our lovely jubilant, took the rest of her stimulus check and hired Delia to feed them this one time this month. And so we want to follow that example and try to provide one lunch and one dinner per month. So if you're able to donate so that we can hire Delia to cater and feed 61 people twice a month, fill out the Google Doc, and then we'll know. Oh, there is one more thing. Refugee Joe Naylor's still rocking it out. There's so much work happening with refugees. Most of the camps are on lockdown, so it's really bad for people. But Joan and Andre are sort of like that child walking down the beach with all of the starfish and throwing one back, as they can. And they just helped a family member arrive in Germany who had walked across Greece, Macedonia, Serbia, and Croatia 11 times. He had been sent back. And he's finally in Germany, and they're helping them with rent and heating and all sorts of things. And so if you'd like to be a part of that, there's some links to get involved on the side. So there's so many ways we can pray with our feet, and there's so much need in the world today. So keep showing up as the jubilant you are, and that is Jubilee in action. Thank you so much.
So many opportunities, Jackie. Wow. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of this amazing community. And this is just a great song to remind us about what's really going on. We are here. We are here for all of us. We are here for all of us. Gabriel, dance. That's why we are here. Yeah, we are here. We are here. Yeah, we are here for all of us. We are here for all of us. That's why we are here. Why we are here. We are here. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, everyone who is continuing to be such a vital part of this community. And so now we are going to take a moment. In a moment, we'll go to the breakout room so we can greet each other. And then we'll go on with our lives out into the world, or staying home and staying safe, whatever it is you're doing this week. But whatever you're doing, I invite you to remember that there is a joy, a peace, a love that the world doesn't give. And because the world doesn't give it, the world can't take it away. So I invite you to surrender yourself to that love this week. Go in peace. Amen.
Yeah, darling, gonna make it happen. Take the world in a love embrace. Fire all of the guns at once. Explode in space. Yeah, like a true nature child. We were born to be wild. Climb so high. Never wanna die. Born to be wild. Symphony of chaos. Born to be wild. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Sound I've ever heard.
Go into your breakout rooms, make sure you and include everyone and say hello and speak a little bit about the message today, and build that community connection. We'll see y'all next week. Lots of love.